Welcome to the Escapist channel. I'm your host, Terrelle. Thank you for taking the time to click on this video. In this video, I'm going to be speaking about Sony's State of Play, which just ended about 20 minutes ago. This was a highly anticipated State of Play for numerous reasons. I'm going to give you a quick bit of background on my expectations going into this State of Play. Now, I think a lot of people would agree that this generation has been in a bit of a disarray, even from the standpoint of PlayStation. I think a lot of people have qualms with the lack of first-party games that PlayStation have released this generation, and as well as their attempts to make multiplayer live service games that have gone wrong in the form of games like Concord, which only released for 2 weeks before being shut down because it was a complete commercial failure. Actually, one of the biggest flops in video game history, reportedly costing up to 400 million to create. Absolute disaster, unlike what we've ever seen before in the gaming industry, to be completely honest, let alone from PlayStation and in their first party division. And then you have other examples such as the highly anticipated Last of Us Factions, a multiplayer game, live service game that was abruptly cancelled, disappointingly cancelled. And there's been other multiplayer things that they've tried, a new Twisted Metal game that they wanted to make and that they were in the process of making, which got cancelled. So this generation has been filled with a lot of disappointment for PlayStation fans, especially PlayStation fans of a particular era. If you were around in the PS3 generation and even the PS4 generation to some extent, you got to experience Sony making a wide variety of single player exclusives as well as some multiplayer exclusives. And it was a really enjoyable time, one that I have a lot of nostalgia for, not just because of the games themselves and that experience, but also because that's when I started YouTube back in 2010 on my old channel. And that's where some of you first found me. And I long for those days to return in a gaming sense, where that level of excitement with the variety of first party exclusives come out. And I felt that Sony really dropped the ball on that part. And that's why I've been saying countless times that I think they need to start showing their hand a bit, because in recent years they've been very selective over what they've let us know about, what they've revealed to us in terms of their first party output. And obviously them canceling games like The Last of Us Factions and some other games that they've been working on only means that it's going to be longer for us to receive the games that they are going to put out from a first party perspective, because so many of their development studios have been putting so many years of time and effort into these games that aren't going to see the light of day. So they essentially have to restart or take some assets and restart with a new title, which is going to take even longer. So I went into this State of Play with actually quite low expectations. I tend to do that now just for the sake of preserving hopefully some enjoyment and not keeping my expectations ridiculously high. I know that Sony are quite reserved nowadays with what they reveal, so I didn't really expect too much. If anything, the main thing I was hoping for in this State of Play, if I was to hope for something, was not even a first party title. It would have been Resident Evil 9 that didn't show up. Um, but I did take notes as I was watching it, just because I want to try and keep track of every single thing that was announced in this State of Play. Um, there's some things I'll have a bit more to say on than others, just by the nature of my interest in certain things. So the State of Play started off, and this was about, I think they advertised it as being 30 minutes long, featuring 20 games. It ran over a bit, so it was about 35 minutes long, I think. And it may have had more than 20 games in it, to be honest. But anyway, so it started off with revealing DLC for Astro Bot. Which doesn't mean much to me at this present time because I haven't played Astro Bot yet. I do want to play Astro Bot. I intend to play Astro Bot. I just chose to buy Space Marine 2 instead. And they both came out within the same week. So I made my choice, but I do plan to go back and play Astro Bot, and I've heard great things about it. But they announced free DLC coming later this year for Astro Bot. The next game they showed off was this claymation style platforming looking type of game that looked like it had some subtle horror elements within it. What it really reminded me of was Little Nightmares. It felt like Little Nightmares, but in a claymation style with this kind of new aesthetic. You had like these creepy bosses and this little character trying to navigate amongst them. And that game was called The Midnight Walk, and that looked like a fairly, decent game, which I would probably one day play, depending on the price. I can't imagine that would be a full release full price title when it releases. I imagine that probably be sold for around £30 or something like that. And if it's around that price, I'd probably get it on sale when it drops to like 20 or something. It look like a decent little game. The next game they revealed is a game called Hell Is Us. And that game essentially looked like a Souls-like game with sci-fi and light horror elements. It's a game I probably play eventually. But me, I'm a huge fan of the Souls-like genre, and I've made that clear many times over the years, and my love for that genre has only grown over the years. But, and I think I'm going to make a video about this as a separate thing to explain in detail why, because it's a complex answer. But as much as I love the genre of Souls-likes, I'm getting burnt out on it now. A recent example, and some people would argue that Black Myth Wukong isn't a Souls-like, and it's kind of like half and half. It's like an action game mixed with the Souls-like. I was enjoying that game when I first got it on release, and I got through chapter two, and I just got bored of the game and just stopped playing it over the past couple of weeks. And that's not necessarily a testament to the game itself, but it's a testament to my burnout with that particular genre. So when I see, and I think so many developers now are making Souls-like games, it almost reminds me of the PS3 360 generation, where everyone was making first-person shooters after Call of Duty's success. And it started to get a bit tiresome. And that's what I feel with the Souls-like genre. So although this game doesn't look bad and it looks like something I would be into, I don't think, and I think it's probably coming out next year anyway, so there'll be quite some time until it comes out. But I don't think even when it comes out, it's something I'll buy on day one, but I'll probably eventually play at some point. The next game they showed off was Metro Awakening in VR. All the VR titles don't really mean much to me. I've kind of gone through my phase with the PSVR 2 now. When it was first announced, I was very, very curious. I was very, very open to buying one, and I wanted them to show me games that would reassure me in making sure that that purchase would be a worthwhile one that will be supported over time and give me worthwhile VR experiences. Unfortunately, PlayStation didn't do that because they ceased to be developing any games themselves for the hardware quite quickly after its release because of its poor sales, which only reinforced in my head that my decision to not purchase one was a good one because it seems like the PSVR 2 is kind of going the way of the PlayStation Vita in the sense that it's a good piece of tech for its time, but it's not getting the support that it deserves and that it needs, and the support that would necessarily make a consumer feel like they're justified in their purchase, which is a shame. Albeit the games they did show off in this presentation for the PSVR 2 did look pretty good, and if I was still in the market to buy one, these games would help me persuade me to make that decision. But I think because I've already seen how Sony have started to treat that piece of hardware over the past year since its release, I need to see a whole lot more, and I need to see a consistent output of good games before I'd ever consider purchasing that again. But the Metro Awakening game did look good in VR. The next game they showed off, I think it's called Age Chronicles, and that seems to be a multiplayer action game. I'm assuming that just because of the small text that came on screen during the gameplay mentioned about having a PlayStation Plus subscription and multiplayer. So I don't know if it has a single player component or if it is strictly multiplayer, but it seemed like an action adventure game with vibrant visuals, and the visuals look pretty good, and fun looking gameplay, which looked like a mix of like kind of Souls-ish type of gameplay, but more action styled overall. And that did look like a fun game. And, I am, contrary to what most people think in the PlayStation fandom, I do want to see multiplayer games. I want Sony to keep making multiplayer games and keep bringing multiplayer experiences to the PS5, and hopefully they'll strike gold with some good ones like Helldivers 2. So if this is a strictly multiplayer game, that isn't going to make me immediately against it. I've recently been playing Space Marine 2 in co-op with my friend, and it felt real good to go back to that old school 360 PS3 era co-op campaign experience. And I really enjoyed that because I don't usually play online with friends as often as I used to. So if this is a new good action game that you can play co-op with friends, then I'm all for it. So this game's definitely got my attention. The next game they spoke about was Palworld, which of course was a big phenomenon at the start of this year on PC and Xbox. And Palworld has been announced. We knew it was coming to PS5. It's been officially announced and it's actually releasing today. I may check that out. I mean, I grew up on Pokemon. Pokemon is one of the first video games I remember truly loving, and it's the first anime I ever watched as well. Those old games on the Game Boy Color, loved them. So I'll be curious to see if Palworld can tap into that kind of nostalgic feeling I have for Pokemon and translate it to this game. So I'll probably check it out. I mean, is it free? I can't remember if Palworld is free or not. So if it's not free, I probably won't check it out straight away because I've got a lot of games to play and a backlog to get through. But if it's free to play, then I'll jump into that probably later this week just to give it a try. The next games they spoke about were their Lunar Remastered Collection, which is a series. I think it's two separate games that were PS1 games and they've been remastered. I've never heard of these games before, so I don't really know what to think about them, but those are being remastered. They then showed a brief bit of gameplay of Sonic X Shadow Generations, and they basically just want to announce that Shadow, there will be like a DLC pack that comes out in December for Shadow that will have Keanu Reeves, who was voicing him in the Sonic 3 film. It's a bit of DLC tie-in for that, basically, where Shadow will be voiced by Keanu Reeves, and you'll have some missions that recreate, or some stages that recreate scenes from the movie. And in that little clip they showed, it was like the scene from the trailer recreated in the game. I am quite curious about that game because I remember when it came out on PS3, but I never played it myself. And I've always liked Shadow the Hedgehog, and I've enjoyed those Sonic movies as well. So I might be in like a bit of a Sonic mood by the time that comes out and willing to try that game out. Um, Next up, there was a game that they spoke about called Fantasian Neo Dimension, and that seemed to be a turn-based or just an action strategy game with music from the Final Fantasy composer. And I think that's out later this year. They announced it. Looks decent. Not something I'm going to rush out and buy, I don't think, but it looks decent enough. Something I might get to later. Then they showed a gameplay, boss battle gameplay from Dragon Age: The Veilguard, which I actually haven't seen any gameplay footage, extended gameplay footage of that game at all yet. I've just not really been looking at it. But of course, Dragon Age: The Veilguard got announced a couple months ago. It's out next month at the end of October. Um, I have quite a connection with the franchise, really, because I remember being in school and one of my friends at the time in school introduced me to Dragon Age. And I think I borrowed his copy of the game at the time and played that. That must have been back in 2009, 2010. And then I remember 2011, I think it was when Dragon Age 2 came out. I got that on release. And I did enjoy those games. And I'd never really properly played Dragon Age Inquisition. I remember when it came out, because back then I was working in the game video store when I was younger. And I remember buying the game and I remember playing, but I don't think I got that far through it. So I haven't had an immediate interest in this new Dragon Age game. But the previews have been positive. They've been comparing it to Mass Effect 2, which is extremely high praise for BioWare. Mass Effect 2 is one of my favorite games of all time. So I'm curious. I'm probably still going to wait till it actually comes out to hear what the reception is before I make a decision on buying it. But this boss battle gameplay was quite interesting. It was fighting a dragon, and the gameplay looked quite varied, and it looked like it mixed up the gameplay like Dragon Age 2 did, I believe. I don't think Dragon Age 1 had that action element, but this had the action element to it and also the strategic kind of turn-based aspect where you can select the attacks, kind of like what you do in Mass Effect. But it also reminded me of Final Fantasy Remake and how they blend those kind of attacks that you can select for the other characters with your own. It reminded me of that. So jury's still out on Dragon Age: The Veilguard, but I'm definitely curious. And the gameplay that I saw today in this showcase definitely piqued my interest a little bit more. Next off, they showed a quick and very brief trailer for Alan Wake 2, The Lake House, which is an expansion that looks to be tied into the Bureau from Control in some way. I started playing Alan Wake 2 last year, Haven't beat it. I got sidetracked by other games, but I loved my experience with it that I played so far. I think I'm about halfway through it, so I do need to finish that game. But I loved what I played so far. So when I do eventually finish Alan Wake 2, I will dive into the DLC. After that, they showed Hitman in VR. I'm a big fan of the Hitman game, so once again, if I was in the market for this VR headset, this would definitely be something that would persuade me because it looked quite fun. But yeah, Hitman in VR. Then this actually leaked earlier on today, so I was already aware of this, but they've got a Legacy of Kain Soul Reaver 1 and 2 remastered collection. Remember playing those games on PS1 when I was a kid. Um, or I think one of them was on PS1 and the other one was on PS2. And I was actually on I dusted off my PlayStation Vita like earlier on this year and played the PS1 version a little bit of the first Soul Reaver game on my Vita. So I'll probably end up getting at some point that remastered collection. And when it comes to remasters, that's what I'm more in favor of. Remaster these older titles that you cannot play at this current time on a PS4 or PS5. Remaster those older classics so people who weren't around then can experience these newer games. The next game they mentioned was Fear the Spotlight, which is a part of Blumhouse's video game division. I remember in a particular event, it may have been Summer Games Fest recently or the Game Awards, where they announced that Blumhouse, the film production company, popular for films like Insidious and The Conjuring, they have a video games division now, and they're letting like indie teams work on different horror experiences in video games. This one is called Fear the Spotlight, and it's a PS1 inspired horror game. Looked pretty decent. Something I might check out. It's out next month in October, of course, for Halloween. Dynasty Warriors, Dynasty Warriors Origins was showed off, and this was one of the games they revealed at the most recent showcase earlier this year. Sorry, the most recent state of play earlier this year that I was happy with. And this game looks like a blast. This game looks like straight heat to me. I used to play Dynasty Warriors a lot on the PS2 with my cousins and against my dad. And when I saw the trailer for it at the state of play earlier on this year, it kind of unlocked a childhood memory for me. And that gameplay just looks so fun. And the graphics look great. And I think that's the perfect type of game for what I need right now, which is like a fun, enjoyable action game that is still an action game. I think so many games nowadays straddle the line between being an action game and being a Souls-like game, whereas this looks purely action, and I'm all for it. Graphics look great, looks like a fun game, and they announced the release date. I think it's January 17th, so it's not too far away. As long as that game releases in a good condition, I think I'll probably get that on day one. So I'm looking forward to Dynasty Warriors Origins quite a lot. After that, they showed off Monster Hunter Wilds. Now, Monster Hunter Wilds looks very good, but in the past, I've struggled to get into this franchise of games. Any Monster Hunter game that I've tried to play in the past, I've struggled to get into and stick with. So the most recent one was it Monster Hunter Rise that came out on the Switch a couple years ago? I bought that on the Switch. Probably put a few hours into it and then put it down and never touched it again. I think there was a Monster Hunter game on the 3DS that I played. Couldn't get into that. This one seems to potential have the potential to draw me, and I think I like what draws me into Monster Hunter is the premise, but also the creature design and the monster design. I think is always great. This one seems to have more of a story that is driving it, that looks like it could be compelling, and maybe that's the type of thing that would draw me in a bit more. I never did play Monster Hunter Worlds. Is that the one, what it was called? That one that came on PS4. I heard that was very good. I never gave that a try actually, so maybe I could have got into that one. But the traditional Monster Hunter games on the Nintendo platforms, I've never been able to get into. But I'd like to see if this one I could get into this one. This comes out at the end of February. Then they showed off Lego Horizon, which is of course is out in November. Probably not going to get that. That's not really for me. I'm not really that big of a fan of Horizon. Then after that, they showed the dreaded Horizon Zero Dawn Remaster, which just shouldn't be a thing. I mean, I guess the one positive with that, if you're looking forward to that remaster for whatever reason, is if you already own the game, which most people do, it's just £10 to upgrade. So you don't have to pay full price if you already own the game. They mentioned graphical improvements, which is going to bring up to the visual fidelity of Forbidden West, which is what I expected they would probably do. And then they also mentioned that they re-recorded the voiceover work and mocap for about 10 hours of footage in the game. And to me, that just seems like a complete waste of time and resources. I don't know why you would need to do that. I mean, I guess for the visual fidelity and the visual detail, it might be why they did it, but it all still seems quite unnecessary. But I think there was a secondary team working on that alongside Gorilla, so it wasn't all Gorilla. So hopefully that didn't use all of their uh, team and resources to work on this remaster when they could be focusing on something else. And I think that was announced to was releasing within the next month or so as well. That Horizon Zero Dawn Remaster. Then they did like a quick segment on the PS5 Pro. Tell a lie, no, they didn't. There was something else that happened before. They spoke about PlayStation Plus. Dino Crisis is coming to PlayStation Plus, the original Dino Crisis. I'm over the moon. This might have been the best thing out of the showcase for me, the thing that's got me most excited, especially because it's coming so soon. I love Dino Crisis. Dino Crisis 1 and 2 I played on PS1 back when I was a kid. I loved dinosaurs when I was a kid. You know, I was a kid that grew up on Jurassic Park, Dino Crisis, the Disney film Dinosaur, loved dinosaurs. And I've been calling for a new Dinosaur Crisis game for years. You know, Capcom have obviously had a resurgence in the past 5 years, and they've been releasing countless remakes of Resident Evil games that have been of high quality. They've recently done a remaster of Dead Rising. I've wanted them to go back and remake Dino Crisis. They haven't done that yet. It's a shame, but I'm glad that in the meantime, it looks like PlayStation have taken note of that fan demand for a Dino Crisis remake and thought, well, why don't we just put the original game on PS Plus in the PS1 Classics Collection? Thank you. I appreciate that. I can't wait to play it. That got me very excited seeing that. And hopefully they can bring Dino Crisis 2 across at some point as well. One thing I also want to say in the monthly um tier. So in the base tier of PlayStation Plus, one of the monthly games they're giving away next month is Dead Space Remake. Phenomenal game. One of my favorite games of all time. I didn't think before playing the remake that the original Dead Space could be topped. But I would actually say, as a fan of that original game from 2008, the Dead Space remake is the definitive version now of that game. So if you've never played Dead Space, make sure you download that game with your PlayStation Plus and give it a try because to me, it's like a damn near 10 out of 10 video game experience. So don't forget about that. Then they did their PlayStation 5 Pro segment where they just showed off some more footage of games just to show off which games are kind of got the PS5 Pro Enhanced label attached. And with this stream, the footage actually did look better, and you could notice the fidelity difference a little bit better in the footage they showed through this stream. And I'm going to be completely honest, seeing this footage and knowing what I know about Final Fantasy Rebirth, because Digital Foundry did a breakdown on the PS5 Pro differences with that, and it did seem to improve a lot of the visual fidelity issues that happen on performance mode with that game. A game which I actually haven't finished because I kind of got busy around that time and was unable to play it, but also because the visual look of the game, people have been describing it as like Vaseline on the screen, how blurry it is. That kind of visual lack of visual fidelity in the performance mode really kind of disappointed me when I first booted up Final Fantasy Rebirth. So if I was to get a PS5 Pro this year, which I still don't think I will, that would probably be the first game I play on it. And if anything, the fact that I haven't played that game yet and it's got a substantial improvement on the PS5 Pro, that in itself is kind of in my head starting to plant a seed of, maybe I should buy this PS5 Pro because I've got a game and a few other games that I could play that I'll immediately see the difference on. Another one they showed off is Dragon's Dogma 2, which I bought earlier this year because I was able to get it quite cheap. Haven't even put the disc in yet, but I really want to play that game. And I heard there were technical issues with that game, but this has PS5 Pro enhancements, so hopefully they fix the performance mode and visual fidelity for that. So that would be another game I could play on the Pro. They showed off Metal Gear Solid Delta, the remake of Snake Eater. Spider-Man 2 and some of the other games that we've already seen. But yeah, it was Final Fantasy Rebirth and then Dragon's Dogma 2. Those are the ones that stood out to me like, oh, these are two games I own that I haven't played through properly yet that I could utilize on the PS5 Pro if I had one. So just that brief showing they had here and then what I heard from Digital Foundry has opened me up a bit to potentially biting the bullet for a PS5 Pro sooner than I expected because I think I'm inevitably going to get one by the time GTA 5 comes out. sorry, GTA 6, I'll inevitably own a PS5 Pro because I think I'm gonna whatever the base PS5 can do with GTA 5, I'm going to want the best I can get for GTA 6. So I'll probably have a Pro by then. It's just a case of when I buy it. I'm not planning to buy one this year, but maybe I will. Maybe I'll get swayed. And then they basically ended with Ghost of Yotei, which of course is Ghost of Tsushima 2, which I was surprised they did show off in the end, but it's something I've been calling for them to show off for quite some time because I felt, we know this game's in development, why are they not showing it off, you know? Like, just let us know something that's in the pipeline. They finally did. Game looks gorgeous as you'd expect from Sucker Punch with this franchise. You actually play as a female character this time around. Um, the location looks good. The story setup looks good. Of course, the gameplay will probably be great, just like the first game. But we finally know it's on the way and it has a release window of 2025. So at least we know that there is a big first party PlayStation game coming next year. And it's one of the most anticipated ones that we're aware of in Ghost of Yotei. And that was it. That was the showcase. And to be completely honest with you, all things considered, that state of play probably shown more things of value to me than I expected. So I can't really complain in all honesty. And whilst I wait on some of these games that are coming out next year to release, I'll just be very excited to jump back into Dino Crisis on PS1. Oh yeah, and another thing they announced was that The Last of Us remake Part 1 is coming to PlayStation Plus for one of the higher tiers, which is pretty decent because I never bought that. I was against buying that. But seeing as this is part of the PlayStation Plus and I have that tier, I'll probably give that a try and play through the game again because I haven't played through the game since the PS4 remaster came out. I think the main story I haven't played since then. So, seeing as I can get it as a part of the PS Plus, I'll probably give that Last of Us game a try, the remake. And yeah, that was it. I mean, like I said, yeah, it was a surprisingly decent showcase in my opinion. They showed some new games off. Of various styles. They put the first party game in there like I wanted, so like Ghost of Tsushima. They gave some PlayStation Plus goodies in the I don't know what I'm saying in terms of Dino Crisis. Had a mind blank there. Yeah, so they got the PS5 goodies in terms of Dino Crisis. They've given us the first party exclusive in terms of Ghost of Tsushima. You got all these other games that are coming out like Dynasty Warriors, Monster Hunter, and then you've got some of these newer titles like Hell Is Us and some of these other games in there. So all in all, if I was to rate it out of 10, I think it was a solid 7 out of 10. Nothing exceptional, but it certainly wasn't a bad showcase. I think it was a good showcase, or state of play, shall I say. And I think that's one of the reasons why I didn't expect much from it because I thought if they're going to have a lot of new things to show, they'll label it a showcase, not a state of play. So I usually do keep my expectations very tempered for state of plays. And I think this was actually probably one of the better ones they've had in recent years in terms of just what they showed off and how I responded to what they showed off. But let me know your thoughts in the comment section about what you thought of this showcase. I keep calling it a showcase. What you thought of this state of play. What games are you interested in? What were you disappointed in? Let me know all your thoughts on that in the comments below. If you enjoyed this video and if you got this far in this video, thank you for listening this far. Hit the like button, that helped me out a lot. And if you're new here, hit the subscribe button so you don't miss out on any future videos. And I'll speak to you guys in the next video.